Final stretch before the drafts. Go inside the locker room.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the locker room on YouTube. You know what it is. Let's get it.
Good ride.
Hey. Locker room. Yeah, we in the locker room. Texas talk. Yeah, you know what we about to do. Localize. Every angle's what we really do. We the source. We the pulse of the city too. Landlocked. Got the game in the headlock. Localize every time. Can't stop. Won't stop.
All right, it is the locker room. We good on the stick mic? Let me know in the comments. Just trying to get the stick mic ready for the draft stream. It is the locker room, number one source for Texans digital content. I appreciate y'all for rolling through. Be sure to join DraftaMania tomorrow. There's gonna be a lot. So Nick Caserio is going to speak at noon. S&L at its normal 4 o'clock time. Then at 8 o'clock, a special super stream edition of S&L with John Harris. He's going to give us his top guys in the draft. He's going to answer every effing question we have thrown his way at 8. And then we'll be back here in the locker room to really break down what Nick Caserio did or didn't say. Trying to fight our way through the word salad. And then before we know it, the draft will be here. The super stream will happen on S&L. And we'll have the party at Carbach on the 26th at 11 a.m. So good times ahead, fun times ahead. I want to touch on something that I saw today on the timeline, and it involved two of my really good friends, Cody Stutes, who I do S&L with, and Will Kunkel over there at Fox 26. They were talking about the draft, and they started talking and debating what the Texans need and what they don't need and all that type of stuff. Quite frankly, it gave me a headache. The whole conversation just gave me a complete headache. And we'll get into why it gave me a headache. But I want to focus on something and a couple of things when it comes to drafting for need that involve the Texans. And maybe it kind of shows how silly of an idea that is in this unique situation, but really in any situation. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it puts you on the other side of things when it comes to the notion that the Texans have this need and they need to draft that specific thing. HDAV Traveler, he is swarming the super chat. Hello to you, my friend.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm
Says, let's get the party started. It's started, baby. It's definitely started. But if I asked you this, and I'm assuming that most people here, either you're trying to get the pulse of what's going on with the Texans or your regulars who are in here often, and you have a pretty good sense of what's going on with this squad. My question would be, what exactly do the Texans need? Like, if the Texans were to draft for need, what do they need? I think there's two very popular things that are mentioned when we talk about need: wide receiver and offensive line. Although the offensive line doesn't usually get accompanied by an actual name, which is one of the damnedest things in draft talk that I think more people are starting to notice. Like, the specific name does not get mentioned. The specific wide receiver does, the specific running back. But the thing that is the most important to a lot of people, that it's nameless faces when the offensive line is discussed. So my question would be, what do the Texans need? O-line, wide receiver, running back are things that get mentioned when it comes to what the Texans need. This was the foundation of the discussion between Will Kunkel and Cody Stutes that I woke up to this morning. And it follow Kunkel at Will Kunkel Fox. Kicking It with Kunkel is a show that he does that he gets a lot of good guests. Strong recommendation to check out. But this is what Kunkel and Cody Stutes were talking about when it pertaining to drafting for need. And Cody, he threw out what we've been talking about a lot: potential of drafting a running back. And let's just sit back and watch the dialogue and how this unfolds, because I think this is how a lot of draft conversations get had. It is a locker room number one source for Texans digital content. Here's Cody Stutes with Will Kunkel on Kicking It with Kunkel.
Everybody, when it comes to this running back class, there's a few do-it-all guys. Obviously, Ashton Genty from Boise State. The Texans won't get a shot at him.
Draft a running back in the first round, I'll lose my dang mind.
Oh, no, this guy's good. He's
okay,
really good.
but you're not drafting a running back in the first round of your Texans. You have serious problems on the front line and at wide receiver.
Sure.
You don't think that's a possibility, do you?
I do think that's possible.
No, you don't.
I do.
You don't believe
I
that.
do.
No,
Amarion Hampton from
you're
North
doing this
Carolina.
to make me mad.
He's a Joe Mixon clone. So imagine having two Joe Mixons.
Fine.
That'd be pretty nice.
Imagine having two Joe Mixons, one wide receiver, and no offensive line.
Well, you got
It sounds pretty fantastic, honestly. Two Joe Mixons, that's great. And I don't know if they have no offensive line, but yeah, two Joe Mixons, that sounds fantastic to me.
3 picks on day 2, so you could draft an offensive lineman there. Okay, Will wants to wait on running back. Well, then you've got Trey Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, the Ohio State duo.
Yep.
Two totally different running backs. Iowa. That's another player that should be available right position that maybe could be a do-it-all guy like Brashard Smith from SMU. There should be a worthwhile running back selection every time the Texans are on the clock.
And that is from Kicking It with Kunkel. I don't understand the disgust with potentially drafting a running back. I don't get it. And I thought we were past this, and we kind of seen the impact that running backs can have, but I just don't. I don't really understand the disgust with the running back. And my question would be, what offensive lineman do you want and what receiver do you want? And I think this should always matter. Like which specific guy do you want? This is not like look, in the later rounds, it kind of is what it is. But like if all of the top offensive linemen are out, let's say even for the sake of this, that Booker is gone too. And the 3 top wide receivers that we've been speaking on, they're gone. Like, do you just draft the best offensive lineman available? Do you just draft the best wide receiver available? I just think that running backs can make the offensive line better. Like, do good skill guys make the OL's job easier? I would say yes. You also need to have a good scheme. But I think the impact that a running back can have in multiple running backs, I think it just kind of gets scoffed over a little bit too easy. And I think it's very dangerous territory if you're just going to sit there and say, well, they need this more. Because then you kind of pigeonhole yourself, especially with the way that this draft is laid out. And this is why you don't look at things that way, because to answer this question, a lot of drafts have more value at certain positions. There's stacked wide receiver drafts. There's stacked quarterback drafts. Like at certain positions, drafts have value in different areas. Again, I say this 100 times, and shout out to everyone in the chat. Drafts are restaurants. They're not Amazon. Amazon, you can go in, you can type in whatever the hell you want. You could say pink and purple sock with polka dots, and you can get that. You can say self vacuum, and you can get that. That's not how the draft works. That's not how the draft works. Draft is a restaurant. You go into a restaurant, you order based on the menu. Some restaurants do things awesome. Some restaurants do things crappy. That's how the draft is. That's how the draft is. And that's the asinine thing about this mindset is specifically on the offensive line. Them do that. We've also seen them figure some stuff out with the offensive line and bring in a lot of bodies, bring in a new coach, and bring out a new scheme. So I think that the running back position has been significantly neglected. You still have Dare Gumbawale. You still have Dameon Pierce. And the running back position, you don't have multiple guys that can make plays. So they need to address that in some way, shape, or form. Ideally, you want a guy who's going to make the biggest impact on your football team, specifically on your offense. And there's not a running back is not in no man's land if the offensive line isn't perfect. Like, he can still make it look better. We saw Joe Mixon. The offense was better with Joe Mixon there. Joe Mixon made the offensive line look good quite often. So I've always been a draft a running back guy because I think it's one of the most impactful positions. And the more that you're shuffling fresh guys in, the better. But in this draft specifically, it lays out to where if you don't draft one earlier, you're gonna be bleep out of luck, regardless of how deep it is. And when we're talking about long-term needs, we don't know how much longer Joe Mixon's going to go. We don't know how Joe Mixon's going to hold up. So having that running back who can help is something that it seems like I say all the time. And I think this is another interesting angle of the draft. And I want to get into DeMeco's role in a sec, but be sure to subscribe, like, right along, like the video. Be out at Carbach Saturday the 26th at 11 a.m. to enjoy day 3 of the draft. And hopefully they have a running back by then. But I thought this was an interesting nug from Peter Schrager. And Peter Schrager said this about just how wild drafts are. He says, at P. Schrags, every team is different. The Giants, who've already had a private workout with Jackson Dart, will be doing the same with Milrose Sanders and Tyler Shugg. The Rams don't do 30 visits. The Jags aren't doing private workouts this year. It's why the draft is one size fits all. So all these private workouts we hear about, some people are doing them. Some people are not even partaking in them. So that just kind of shows like the mindset, the approach of the draft is not the same. By the way, the Jags thing, the Jaguars, it's starting to really feel like Genty. It's starting to really feel like Genty is a possibility for the Jags at 5, if he's there. And there's also logical reason to believe he may not be there. But it's starting to feel like that is a strong possibility. The names that I've seen with the Colts have been both tight ends, Warren and Loveland. And then even Warry's getting a lot of momentum too from Indianapolis people. People who kind of throw out names, much like we do. The name that is starting to become very popular with the Colts is Eamon Warry. And I think that if that happens, that's probably the best case scenario for the Texans. Because you're probably hoping that maybe there's a chance that Loveland falls. And if Eamon Warry ends up being the selection, there's zero chance that the Texans are going to take him at this point. Early in the draft process, we thought there might be, but with the Gardner-Johnson trade and the Petrie commitment, there's just, I mean, it would be insane if the Texans did that. That would be something to where I don't even think he's going to be there, but if that happened, then I don't want to say people would be out on DeMeco, but there would be some strong questioning about what the hell is going on here when it comes to DeMeco Ryans. And I think these would be fair questions. So if Eamon Warry goes to the Colts, that's best case scenario. Genty to the Jags, yeah, I don't think too many people will be. I know a lot of people aren't high on running backs, but I don't think too many people would be thrilled about the possibility of him falling to the, I don't even consider it falling, the Jags drafting him. Joseph says you don't have faith in Dameon Pierce. I do not. As an RB2, no. And I don't think the value is there as a kick returner anymore. based on what the Texans have done. And bringing in guys that could potentially return the rock, not named Dameon Pierce. But those are the worst case scenarios there. Here's the question that I have about DeMeco Ryans and his current role. And I do wonder if DeMeco Ryans feels a need to step back. And when it comes to need, there's another question I have about DeMeco, but I wonder if DeMeco Ryans is willing to step back if needed. And some might hear this and say, well, what are you saying about DeMeco Ryans? How are you going to say that DeMeco Ryans needs to step back? I'm not saying that DeMeco Ryans does need to step back or doesn't need to step back. What I'm saying is that sometimes it's necessary for coaches to do that, especially on the opposite side of the ball that's their specialty. Sometimes it's necessary for coaches to do that. At some point, Andy Reid probably had to take a step back and say, okay, Spags, you control the defense. I'm going to run the offense. It's going to be a well-oiled machine. I think that's ideally what any coach wants, any defensive coach, any offensive coach. We've seen defensive coaches just hand it over to the offense, and the offense thrives, and you don't have to worry about it. I don't know that that's what DeMeco Ryans was doing early on in his tenure. I know for a fact that we did see Nick Caserio step back. And in wake of everything that was going on when DeMeco Ryans was hired, and the fact that there were some people questioning, myself, the way in which they kind of pissed away the number 1 overall pick, I think Caserio kind of stepped back with all this stuff, and they brought in a new offensive system, and he let DeMeco do his thing. And DeMeco's done a hell of a job. I don't know that you could ask realistically for a better start from what DeMeco Ryans has done when you just look at the body of work 2 years in. I think you're optimistic, and I think no matter what happens and no matter what the answer is to these questions, DeMeco Ryans is going to be the head coach of the Texans. And even if this offensive coordinator doesn't work, DeMeco Ryans is still going to be the guy to try to get things right. But we did see Caserio step back. And I wonder, and we've talked about this in the offseason, is the next phase of the offseason, is it more active for him? Given the fact that the new offensive coordinator comes from New England, given the fact that you're familiar with that system, given the fact that there's a lot of ties that Caserio has to him, do we see Nick Caserio more active? And is DeMeco going to be willing to step back? I think the answer is yes. I think the answer is yes, for better or worse. Now, is that a good thing? I don't know. Last year, DeMeco Ryans, when we were at his press conference, he was asked like what he needs to work on doing. He said, listening and trusting my coaches more. Okay. Well, what if they suck? Like, what if Bobby Slowick wasn't someone that you needed to trust too much? Then what do? Do you all of a sudden become more hands-on? Or do you kind of take a step back? We don't know completely what he was doing, whether he was hands-on with the offense or whether he was too hands-off. But is DeMeco willing to step back if needed? We see it all the time. Gary Kubiak had to figure out the right defensive coordinator. And that might be something that DeMeco Ryans has to figure out. Dan Quinn last year in Washington, he brought in Cliff Kingsbury. Cliff Kingsbury take over. Boom, there you go. Kind of similar to what we saw with Slowick early. But is DeMeco Ryans willing to take a step back and not micromanage things? The other thing is we do have some clues from DeMeco Ryans. I think there's some bold context clues, and it's actually beyond context clues from DeMeco, and they're very positive. We said this when he made the decisions. He was willing to make the tough decision to fire his buddy Bobby Slowick. Probably not tough to me or you, but to him it was. And he could have easily justified it in his own mind in a couple of ways. First of all, he's not going anywhere. You keep Bobby Slowick around. If DeMeco's goal was self-preservation, like a lot of people, like a Jack Easterby or a Bill O'Brien or a lot of people in the corporate world, then he wouldn't have had to get rid of Bobby Slowick. But I think his goal is to put the best football team out there possible. So he got rid of Bobby Slowick. Then he got rid of Laramie Tunsil on that side of the ball, which maybe it was easy, maybe it wasn't, but he made the tough decisions. So if he's willing to do that, you got to think he's willing to give a little, much like Caserio did when he first got here. Now, Caserio might not have had a damn choice because it was going to be DeMeco's ship. If he had pushed back too far, we might be talking about a different general manager. They gave DeMeco the keys to the franchise, and Caserio arrived to that conclusion. But had he not, then who knows what happens? But Caserio was willing to take a step back. Now, as I previously said, he had to. DeMeco doesn't have to. So what is the balance between DeMeco Ryans working with Nick Caley, DeMeco Ryans fully trusting Nick Caley, Nick Caserio's role in the whole thing? I think that'll be interesting. And I also think it's kind of relevant when it comes to the draft. Because last year we saw a lot of suspect things on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of it was personnel stuff that the coach could probably oversee. We don't know who decided that Shaq Mason needed to be back in the lineup. We don't know who decided that they needed to keep Kenyon Green in the lineup until he got hurt. We don't know who decided about all the shuffling and the Juice Scruggs, Jared Patterson game of musical chair. We don't know who decided all this. Like Chris Strausser's gone, Bobby Slowick's gone. But how much of a factor did DeMeco play into that? Decision to get rid of Noah Brown and keep John Mechie instead of Noah. Whose decision was that? The decision to get rid of Cam Akers. Whose decision was that? So the question goes back. The question we started with and the question we're on is, does DeMeco have a grasp of need? Does he have a grasp of what they need on the offensive side of the ball? Or is this just a Caserio Caley show? Obviously, everyone's going to factor in, but there's always someone, like you can say it's a group think. Who's the guy that's going to really, really decide in what direction the Texans go? We don't know that. And we may never know that. The decision may be made and we may not know that. But the reality is you've gotten rid of Slowick. You've gotten rid of Strausser. You've got a new system. It's a new year. There's new expectations. And it's a completely different type of draft vibe that you've had the first couple of times that you guys have worked together. And we know they're good on defense. If they're not good on offense, you got to start looking at DeMeco. I don't think DeMeco's on any hot seat. But if we're talking about a fired offensive coordinator 2 years after the fact, then yeah, I think it might not be hot, but it warms up a little bit. And you start to wonder about having a defensive coach. So he's got to figure this out. I think DeMeco is someone who's going to be willing to let these guys figure stuff out. But even with that said, as someone who oversees it, he's going to have to step in accordingly and step in whenever it's necessary. In a perfect world, it's not necessary. You got Spags holding it down. Or Vic Fangio like he did for the Eagles. So the offensive coaches can just focus on that side of the ball. Defensive for DeMeco. He's still going to have to oversee and make that decision. Because he and Nick are still here. The offensive system has changed. So is DeMeco Ryans willing to take a step back? Does he need to take a step back? El Lobo in the chat says that New England offense absolutely sucks. I don't know that it sucks. And we don't know that that's the exact offense they're running. I think there'll be elements. I like the personnel elements of it. Obviously, not every team has Tom Brady, but I don't know if it just completely sucks. I think when you've seen Josh McDaniels go to other spots, he tried to run it with Tebow. He tried to run it with whoever the hell was his quarterback with the Raiders. It just didn't go well. Bill O'Brien, same type of thing. But I think elements of the offense can be fine. You don't want to try to copy the wrong things, but they described it as a hybrid. We'll hear from Nick Caserio tomorrow at noon. I don't know what the hell hybrid means. I don't know what a hybrid of the New England offense and the Rams offense looks like. But I don't know if the offense just completely sucks. It sucked when O'Brien did it. I don't think Caley's going to be the same. But who the hell knows? I think the uncertainty is a little bit wild as well when it comes to that. But yeah, be sure to check out Kicking It with Kunkel. Stutz was on, and they gave me a headache with the talk about the running backs. Let's look at the high grade picks right now for the Texans.
High grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
And I'm talking about by high grade, I mean these are the picks that seem to be the fan base seems to be the highest on. There's a few names that the fan base seems like they would be most excited with these 5 names. I have 5 names that it feels like are the most popular ones right now for the Texans. Number 1 would be Ibuka. It feels like if Ibuka's there at 25, it feels like perhaps the safest pick. I think it's a pick that CJ Stroud would be on board with. And I think he's probably someone that the fan base can easily get behind. Now, is the fact that we're talking about taking him at 25, does it have to do with the state of the wide receiver core or in this draft? Is it just kind of a need thing? Don't know. But if Ibuka's there at 25, I feel like he's been kind of one of the more popular names. And I think he would be number 1 on the high list. Number 2, offensive line. We've talked about offensive line, nameless faces in most cases when people kind of talk about needing offensive linemen. But Tyler Booker out of Alabama sounds like the offensive version of Will Anderson, kind of an ass kicker, guy that you put at right guard and you don't ask questions. Hopefully. Now, we said that about Kenyon Green before on the left side, and that didn't go quite according to plan. But you hope that you put Booker at right guard and he holds it down for a while and is kind of one of the faces, one of the many faces, the one voice faces, as DeMeco Ryans calls it. That's kind of the next version, the next era of offensive line play in a place, let's just be honest, known for crappy offensive line play. So Booker would be number 2. CJ Stroud's former teammate Ibuka, Booker, Will Anderson's guy. The next one, it just feels this way. It feels like there's some acceptance of the possibility of Hampton. It feels like Will Kunkel might be in the minority on this when it comes to nowhere with the running back. It feels like Omarion Hampton is a pick. Quite frankly, it feels like Omarion Hampton's not going to be there. But it feels, and y'all can let me know if I'm wrong, it feels like Omarion Hampton is, people are kind of open to it. Open to it. Damn, someone in the chat called Booker Kenyon Green 2.0. I don't know if I see the similarities there. I don't know if I see the similarities there, but hey, I'm not going to tell you to feel confident when Nick Caserio picks an offensive lineman. And I will ask him about that tomorrow, I promise you. We'll react to that in the locker room stream tomorrow at 10:30. Be sure to be at S&L at 8 for the super stream. That's going to be fun as hell. But I will ask Caserio about the offensive line, I promise you. But a Hampton number 2 or number 3. And then number 4, I don't know if this is a pipe dream. I don't know if this is the media scout misleading, but Kelvin Banks feels like people would be joyed if Kelvin Banks was there. And sometimes people locally lean towards college prospects that played in the state. So I think there's an element of that with Banks. He's also a really good player, and he could perhaps start out as a guard and then work his way into being a tackle. He's not one of those offensive linemen, and I absolutely hate it. It goes back to Bill O'Brien, Brian Gaine. I can't stand when an offensive lineman is taken in the first round and you talk about how versatile he is. I get it when you draft Jared Patterson or even Juice Scruggs in the second, but in the first round, give me the ass kicker that's good at one thing. Don't give me the jack of many trades and elite at few. However the hell you say that. People have said that. I like that line. But Banks is not that. Banks is just someone who would start out at guard and then go to left tackle. I mean, I hope to God, like, if you draft Tyler Booker, it's okay. He's our right guard. Banks, yeah, we're going to start him at guard and we're going to slowly move him to tackle, something like that. It happens. And maybe it's just me living in my localized little bubble, but I hate when GMs or coaches draft an offensive lineman in the first round. They go up there, oh, he's very versatile. I'll never forget when Brian Gaine did that. I walked out of the press conference. Walked out. It was after the draft. So I was like, no, I don't want to hear this. And you know who that was about? It was about Titus Howard. They didn't say Titus Howard's going to be a good right tackle. They didn't say Titus Howard's going to be a good left tackle. They said, he's an offensive lineman. And guess what Titus Howard has done? He's moved around a bunch of places, and he hasn't been very good. Get me somebody who's good at a certain spot. Give me the vision. Don't give me this versatile crap for a first-round offensive line. There's plenty of versatile offensive linemen. Don't give me that. Juice Scruggs, another versatile guy. What's he good at? Nothing. He's performed like a sixth or seventh round pick at both guard and center. He plays both of them. Good for him. I would say here's a perfect attendance letter, but he's also hurt. So you've had the guy hurt and you have the guy not very good at anywhere. Juice Scruggs. Versatility. That was mentioned with Juice Scruggs. Titus Howard, versatility. I don't want to hear it. Give me someone who's good at something if you're going to take an offensive lineman that early. Don't sit here and tell me this can do a lot of stuff. It gets me really fired up because I think it's the most annoying damn thing that the Texans have done for way too long. Fifth guy that I think people are okay with, I don't know necessarily at 25, but there does seem to be a Judkins movement going on. Maybe I'm just living in my own world and I've been the one pushing this, but this is a guy who's done everything that you can ask. He's tough, he's dependable, he's smart. Like they've brought back that line. I'm a big fan of this guy. And I am such a big fan, like even like an outside the box, taking him with your first selection, if it's a trade back or not. I think this guy's good. I think he's going to be excellent. He's already shown that he can work with another running back, and he's already shown that if that running back's not there, he can handle that business as well. He's also shown that he can play in a smash mouth offense, and he can also play in like an air raid like Ole Miss. So he's played in multiple styles. He's played at multiple venues. Judkins is one of my favorite guys right now, to the point where I'd be thrilled if he's on the team. I'll be absolutely thrilled if he's on the team. Another thing that I thought was interesting, I heard this conversation being had, and you've heard it a lot, about the transfer portal. And how do people feel about the transfer portal when it comes to prospects? Does it show like a lack of loyalty? Does it show that you aren't committed and stuff like that? I actually don't mind. I don't really mind that. I don't really completely mind that. When someone's transferred all over the place, I actually think it's a good thing. Because moving to a big city with higher expectations and only knowing one way, and I'm not counting high school, but that to me, you're more prepared for the NFL. I think it was kind of a culture shock for Cade Stover last year. I think he would admit that. You live in Ohio on a farm, and then all of a sudden you go to Ohio State. You really only know one state. You end up in Houston, and you see the way they do it. A lot of times players probably get shocked by changing coaches. Kenyon Green only knew Jimbo Fisher, and then he had a few coaches here with the Texans. But some of these guys like only know one certain coach. Sometimes it works out, but sometimes it doesn't. Judkins has played for Lane Kiffin. He's played for Ryan Day. He's been in the SEC. He's been in the Big Ten. He's lived in a hot weather situation. He's lived in a cold weather situation. I mean, that's better experience than someone who's just been in North Carolina or Boise the whole time. Wouldn't you say? Like if you're bringing someone into a situation, wouldn't you make a case, like if we're just talking about being prepared for that? Like, wouldn't you say that the guy who's played in multiple situations for coaches with opposite personalities and two of the most passionate fan bases, wouldn't you say that that's kind of an advantage? I actually think that guys that have transferred have a bigger advantage when it comes to that. Tristan asks what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the advantage of playing in multiple situations and then going to an NFL building and knowing multiple ways that stuff works. That's what we're talking about. That's what we're talking about. I think it's a very simple thing. Jacob swarming to the super chat.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
He says if the Texans don't address the name of position, then the draft is going to be considered a failure. Okay, so you're asking like which position? I think if they don't address skill position, I'll say tight end, running back, wide receiver. If they don't address that, then I think it's a problem. And I'm kind of leaning towards the running back position because they've done nothing to improve the quality of that position in the first few phases of the offseason. They've done nothing. They've done some things with the receiver core. They've done some things with the offensive line. They've done nothing at running back. They're bringing back Dare Gumbawale. Like if training camp started tomorrow, they would have the exact same running back depth chart that they had last year. It's terrible. So I would say running back. They've got to, especially with the opportunity, I would say running back. Appreciate you. Matt, shout out to Matt.
You ain't never hate.
Swarm.
Said, just got home from the Cards and Stros game. Did I miss anything? No, we're just talking about the distaste that some people have for running backs, the desire to draft for need, and DeMeco's battle of too much trust versus not enough trust when it comes to the offensive side of the rock. And then we talked about the top five. I think you're probably there for that. The top five high-grade picks for the Texans.
High-grade marijuana called Kush on the streets.
Quash53 on the chat says, we need our own identity rather than copying New England or whoever created a good running game and play solid football all around. They're not copying New England. They used to copy New England. I mean, this is DeMeco's squad. DeMeco does not run things like Bill Belichick, so they're not copying New England. They used to do that. They brought in Bill O'Brien, who acted like, he invented football. He would even spell things the way Bill Belichick did, use all his trademarks. There's no Patriot way copying here. Now it's guys with the background from New England that might implement some things, and I think there's some good things that you can take from New England. But if you think that this is going to be like the old days of copying what New England did, I don't think that's going to happen. So I think they do have their own identity, and hopefully they implement some of the good things that New England did, with the understanding that Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, they're not walking through that door anytime soon. Brandon on the chat says Josh Connerly is a finesse offensive tackle, may be able to lock down anyone they tell him to in pass blocking. He's a finesse OT, may be able to lock down anyone. So kind of Laramie Tunsil-ish. I mean, if you can get another Laramie Tunsil that's buying into what you're selling and buying in, that would be cool. I don't know if that was an endorsement or a knock on him. And quite frankly, I don't know what style of offensive lineman they're looking at. Eric says Landry will change his mind next week. I want to change my mind about what? Not sure. It's possible. I could change my mind. I don't know what I'm changing my mind on though. Andrew says if we don't start a RB, Mixon starts. If we don't start a wide receiver, Hutchin or Mechie or Watson start. I mean, you bring up a good point, but I still think you can use the running backs different points. And again, tell me who the wide receiver is. I wouldn't be saying this based on last year's wide receivers. I really wouldn't be saying this on any of like the 5 previous wide receivers. I'm saying it based on what they got. Is it ideal? No. There's a very small chance that you're going to be satisfied with the offensive line completely, the wide receivers completely, might be able to with the running backs after this draft. It's damn near impossible. But I get what you're saying, and that's why I think Ibuka is probably the most popular name as someone who gets there, as someone who figures some stuff out. Does anyone get excited about Watson? Never heard of the guy till they signed him. DeMeco called him one of the most consistent players in the NFL, which I thought was wild. A little bit wild, a little bit crazy by DeMeco to say that. I'm intrigued by him. I think he's already better than Hutchinson and Mechie. And I think Hutchinson can come back better and continue to improve. I'm not completely dismissing a day 3 pick 3 years in. But I think at the very least, he's better than those guys. Got some experience. I'm kind of intrigued. I know, like, the example I use, like a Kevin Hogan type of guy from the old Pats days. And I'm not doing just compare a player, but I think there could be that kind of impact where they were able to do their thing and make runs with limitations at wide receiver. But I'm intrigued by the Watson thing. He was in Kansas City, so he was behind a lot of names, but they've also needed wide receivers to step up for a while. And you don't necessarily see him as often. Ty says Banks, Loveland, Hampton at 25 or trade back. Yeah, and the Loveland thing, I just don't think he gets past Jim Harbaugh at 25. And I don't know that he gets past Indianapolis, assuming that Warren's going to go in the top 10. But the scenario we threw out with Indianapolis taking Eamon Awori, maybe that means he does fall a little bit. How much do the Texans like him? They haven't visited with him. But as we previously mentioned, and as we've seen from the Texans picking, the visits aren't like the end all be all. At all. What's the furthest back you would be comfortable with us trading back? That was interesting, and that was actually something that I want to touch on. So appreciate the assist. You kind of threw it up there, Matthew, and I already had the thing set up for it. I think there is a swarm watch in this draft. And I think with that Minnesota pick, where Minnesota only has 4 picks and they're picking in front of you, I think you need to be very aware of the teams drafting shortly after you, especially given the fact that they're teams that might feel they're kind of like one impact player away. I think you really got to be worried about that. And maybe it even creates an opportunity where you could trade back with them. But there's been talk that Kansas City might be looking to trade up. I saw that. Kansas City, Minnesota trade was thrown out on one of the sites that I follow. There was talk about Buffalo perhaps trading up. We saw them trade back last year. Kansas City and Buffalo both made moves up and out of the first round last year. So keep an eye on them. Baltimore, you always got to be aware of them. And then Detroit at 28, Washington 29, and Buffalo. So I wouldn't dismiss the possibility. If you're asking me how far back I would want to trade, I would say probably 34, maybe 37, 38 with New England, maybe. Vrabel and Caserio know each other. Maybe trade back 13 spots to 38. I think that would be kind of an interesting situation. New England, maybe they go safe early, and then at 38, they want to go up and get somebody. Now, hopefully it's not someone you want, like a running back. But I know Mike Vrabel's an Ohio State guy. Let's say that Mike Vrabel wants to run the rock. Maybe he wants to go up and get one of those Ohio State running backs. Maybe the Texans feel that they can get one to fall to him. It's kind of a dangerous area there at 38. I think it's similar to what happened when you ended up with Jalen Petrie, when most people believed that they wanted Breece Hall there. But 38 would be all right. I think you could be all right at 38 if you traded with New England. I don't know that Tennessee and the Jags are going to trade, but trading with teams, I don't believe in the whole like don't trade with teams you're threatened by. If you think it's going to help you and they go up, who cares? I know the Buffalo Xavier Worthy thing got a lot of attention. That's more so a Buffalo thing. They needed a wide receiver and they let Kansas City go get their top wide receiver. That was a dumb move by Buffalo. But I don't think it was because they made the trade. We've seen the Cowboys make trades with teams in the division. Like it happens. But I would say 38 would be the ideal scenario. And then the Vikings, they're trading back. We've said that. Like that's a fact. They're trading back, and it's going to be with one of these good teams, or it's going to be with one of these teams. It's going to be with one of these teams in the second round who you can go all the way 1-7, although the Jets are back at 42. But it's going to be one of these teams that maybe like wants to go up and aggressively get someone on day 2 or day 1 that falls. And you end up getting, I don't know, their second, third, something like that. But those are the teams to keep an eye on. I think anyone from 27 to 42, I think they might be interested in trading up. And then New Orleans is the other wild card at 40. Like, is there a Shedeur Sanders fall? But the problem with trading back, I don't even think we can think about it right now because the team in front of you is a given to trade back when it comes to the Vikings. That's the problem. Like, I would love to trade back. I'm team trade back. You trade back like 9 spots and get an extra day 2 pick. I think that's awesome. Or even more picks than that. Problem is Minnesota, it's prime target. So you're not even in control of that situation. It's the worst. It's literally the worst place to be picking in the first round. The worst team to be behind is Minnesota. If you're functioning under the belief that the chances are that someone at 25 is going to fall to you that you like. Being behind Minnesota it's a disaster territory. It's not where you want to be at all. So it's not a good place to be at all. Is positional value still alive? It's a question I want to ask. Is positional value still alive? We've heard it about running backs. We've heard it about centers. We'll put the specialists to the side because that's kind of common sense, unless you're the Raiders and you draft Sebastian Janikowski in the first round, which, by the way, I don't think that ended up being the worst pick. But I digress. Is positional value alive for the Texans? Putting the specialists aside, is positional value still alive? And could the Texans actually benefit from positional value? Are we to the point where now the tight end positional value and the running back positional value have completely been eliminated? Or do those old habits kind of peek their head a little bit? Do teams think, yeah, we saw Saquon last year, but, Omarion Hampton, that's a little bit rich this early in the draft. Tight ends, we know we saw Brock Bowers last year, but, let's be serious. Tight ends, come on. Could positional value of those two positions, could it actually benefit the Texans? Is it completely eliminated? Spoiler alert, for Tyler Warren, it is. For Ashton Genty, it's gone. Those two guys, they're going in the top 10. If Tyler Warren falls out of the top 10, stuff gets interesting. Because Indianapolis is going to be on their knees looking to beg up, to trade up. Beg up, whatever the hell they want to do, whatever the hell you want to call it. But when it comes to Colston Loveland, does Colston Loveland, do teams look at him like Dalton Kincaid? Dalton Kincaid's been all right. It's been a great pick in the first round. Not terrible. Last year, the debate with Brock Bowers was, do you draft this guy this early? They did it. They don't regret it. And I think there's a lot of examples of teams that have ignored positional value and it's kind of worked out. There's positional value agenda in that whenever someone gets drafted at that position, it's like the prime example of why you don't do it. When there's flops in the first round at all positions all of the time, there's like a positional value agenda, and it's kind of a bias. It's typically used with running backs. I always use the Clyde Edwards-Helaire Chiefs example as like that's the reason why you don't draft running backs in the first round. Well, how about the fact that they could have taken Jonathan Taylor and they probably would have been okay with it? They just took the wrong guy, which is the case most of the time. So I am intrigued by the positional value. I'm also intrigued by just the manner in which the Texans are being talked about leading up to this draft. And I think two of the most elite offenses in the NFL can kind of relate to the dialogue that is going on with the Texans. And we actually started the show with it, with that back and forth between Kunkel and Stutz. And that's, well, you don't draft a running back because you need offensive line, and you don't draft receiver. I think the two examples that I use when this conversation happens, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the 2021 Jamar Chase dialogue and the 2023 Gibbs dialogue, it was pretty effing one-sided. Why the hell are the Bengals drafting another wide receiver when they have all these problems on the offensive line? What are they thinking? What are they doing? They don't regret that. Matter of fact, they look smart. Who knows how many receipts they have? Jahmyr Gibbs, oh my gosh, what are the Lions thinking? Oh, this is why the Lions can never figure things out. You draft a running back this early. What exactly were the Lions thinking? I think they feel pretty good about where they're at, and I think they feel pretty good about their selection. So it's obviously a much lower scale. I'm not saying the next Jamar Chase or the next Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be there for the Texans, but dismissing guys like Omarion Hampton, Quinshon Judkins, Trey Henderson, like dismissing those guys and saying they just need offensive line. First of all, it's functioning under the assumption that skill guys can't help the offensive line. Second of all, I just think I think it's kind of ignoring these examples and kind of the dialogue that was going on with them. So I'd be really, really careful when dismissing running backs and dismissing the wide receivers in favor of the offensive line. Fifth Ward says he'll be okay with Kyle Williams, Jaden Higgins, Trey Harris, or Savion Williams. So Higgins, I haven't heard of the Texans meeting with him. But that's not the end all be all. They actually met with Knoll. Harris, I believe they had a meeting. Haven't heard anything on Savion Williams. I don't like Kyle Williams. I'll just be honest. I'm not big on Kyle Williams. The competition is wild. Like, if you want my favorite draft day game, and my hater ass friend used to do this every time we would have our draft parties. He would find like a small school guy or a guy from a bad conference, and it kind of became a bit where it was kind of extensive. But during their highlight tape, if they were playing like a small school that most people wouldn't know, he'd be like, name that team, name that team, name that team, just kind of hating. Go watch, like, really, really do this and just try to pass the test and tell me what your grade is. Tell me what your grade is. Don't be shy. But I want you to go watch Kyle Williams highlights. Just type in Kyle Williams highlights on Twitter, X, type it in on YouTube, and play Name That Team and tell me how easy it is. Because I hear some of these schools, I hear like Royals getting hated on for, less competition. And I actually like Royals. I don't think he's terrible out of Utah State. I don't think he's terrible. But just type in Kyle Williams and try to play Name That Team. Try to play Name That Team. Washington State hasn't really been in a conference lately. Try to play Name That Team with him. Pull up the game log. Let's just pull up the Kyle Williams game log. And look, the small school thing might not matter. it very well might not matter. And we've seen a lot of examples where it hasn't mattered at all. So maybe it doesn't. But I hear all this talk about Royals, and it's like, well, he didn't play this and this and this. All right, let's pull up Kyle Williams. Let's go back to 2023, because in 2022, he really wouldn't. 2022, we had 541. So we'll go to his 2 best years, 2023. Let's see what old Kyle Williams did with the game log. Pull this up. Let's play a little Name That School. All right, we had 85 against Washington. That's good. That's solid. Touchdown. Colorado, when they did their thing there, 3 catches, 46. Okay. Cal, 557. This is when the Pac-12 was still alive. So this was the year before. 8 for 77 against ASU. That's cool. Oregon, 5-102. Okay. Oregon State, 174. So he had a good year in the Pac-12, 842. Let's go 2024 now. Kyle Williams. Okay. The Syracuse bowl games are what they are. All right. So Wyoming, 4 for 59. Oregon State, 5 for 95. Who's that? 9 for 181 and 3 touchdowns. Oh, New Mexico. Okay. Utah State, 3 more touchdowns, 55 yards. So we have 6 touchdowns out of 14. We've got that from New Mexico and Utah State in a 2-week span. Then we kind of went through a drought. San Diego State, that's tough. 5 for 74. Hawaii, wow. 4 for 59. Fresno State, 3 for 39. All right. Boise State, there you go. That's a big one. 9 for 142. Touchdown. Oh, San Jose State, double overtime. 8 for 138. And then we have a 22-yard receiving game, a 21, and a 141. Oh, who's that against? Oh, Portland State. Okay. Like, name that team. Name that team with Kyle Williams. Maybe I'm just hating because I'm not as big on Kyle Williams, and I like Royals out of Utah State. So that might be talking out of both ends. But go play Name That Team with Kyle Williams. It's tough. It's really tough. Huge Kyle Williams fan. There's a lot of you. And quite frankly, you might like him more with me not being that big on Kyle Williams. I think if Kyle Williams is the best receiver that you get in this draft, I think it's a little tough. I'm sleeping on Kyle Williams. That is true. I am snoozing. Very much. Sleeping crazy on this man. He seems like a popular guy. But just name that team. Play it. Play the Kyle Williams. Give me those stats. Okay, 1198 and 14 touchdowns. Okay, let's check this out. All right, New Mexico, 3 touchdowns. Utah State, 3 touchdowns. Okay, that's good. 2 touchdowns against Portland State. So that's 8 of your 14 right there. That's 3 against New Mexico. That's 3 against Utah State. And that's 2 against Portland State. Let's add 1 against Wyoming. Big yard games. The bowl game against Syracuse. Again, bowl games. And then the times, let's look at the 4 times that he broke 100 yards last season. All right, 181 against New Mexico, 42 against Boise State in a 45-24L, 138 against San Jose State, and then 141 against Portland State. Those are the teams that he broke 100 on. Portland State, San Jose State, Boise State, New Mexico. And I'm not saying that to like, if you like Kyle Williams, like Kyle Williams. There's guys that are D2 that end up being good. But I don't think he's getting looked at like the same way that Royals is. And I think it's similar competition when he produced the most. So that's another thing to factor in with the Kyle Williams. Play Name That Team. Let me know how it goes. I'm sleeping on him. I'm absolutely sleeping on him. I'm 100% sleeping on him. I like Royals better. lot of Kyle Williams fans, people watching tape. Good for you. It's impressive. I mean, when you're outrunning Portland State, you're gonna look fast. I'm just being a hater now. I'm just being a hater now. Christian says, not tough at all if you know college ball. I've forgot more college ball responding to this than many know, be honest with you. I'm not holding it against you. Portland and San Diego are lowered in opponents, but he's still good. He's still good. I think he might end up with Cam Ward. I know they played together at Washington State. I hope he does. I hope he does. I don't hate him because of that. I just don't like Kyle Williams, so I'm just kind of throwing that in there. Larenson, we'll ask John Harris about that tomorrow at 8. We'll ask John Harris about that. Rookie wide receiver versus Keenan Allen cost. Does Keenan still want to play? I haven't even thought about Keenan Allen lately. He said he wanted to be West Coast, right? Because that's where he's from. Seemed like those other teams had other ideas, and they ended up basically all signing a bunch of guys. So I don't know. I haven't even thought about Keenan Allen. If Keenan Allen's like a low-cost guy, maybe you draft a receiver and bring him in. Kansas City did it last year, where they went in that secondary market, the veteran market, a few times, and then still drafted Xavier Worthy. Maybe both. They like Keenan Allen before they traded for Stephon Diggs. They just didn't want to trade a draft pick for this year. But they, by most accounts, not only were they willing to trade, they were willing to give an extension. So do they still like him? Do they think he fits with Kirk? I don't think 2 slots will scare him away, but I haven't even heard whether or not Keenan Allen wants to play. If you look at Keenan Allen's career earnings, Keenan Allen's kind of disappeared. Unless I'm just missing it. So who knows? But you look at those career earnings, 120 mil. Met his wife in Los Angeles. So maybe he doesn't want to move around and play that bad. Who knows? Like maybe a $10 million check doesn't mean a damn thing to him. Who knows? A lot of Kyle Williams fans. I should have put him on the top 5 list. Maybe I should have put him on there. Why we want him, I guess, because wide receivers thin. Don't know. Xavier passed on Allen. Nothing incredibly wrong with him, but just no place for him. Fair. Very fair. So up 45 in the land known as Dallas, they had a exclusive media gathering where their general manager answered questions, kind of some softballs, I'm sure, from media types about the Luka trade. The report was from Mark Stein. I actually crazy story, when I first started my radio career, I actually produced Mark Stein's soccer show. He had a Sunday soccer show. I was working a ton of hours, but I would go in because he actually paid me pretty good for that hour, like really good for that hour. So I was willing to do it. But he had a soccer hobby, and I used to be his producer. But Mark Stein says at the Stein line, Mavericks execs Nico Harrison and Rick Welts are hosting a roundtable for Dallas media members, no cameras, all that type of stuff, blah, 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 blah. So there was that. I bring this up because I remember once upon a time when a guy who was making suspect decisions and a guy who was very hated and a guy who wanted to go into hiding but kind of take credit when things were going well. I remember when he had one of these, and that was Jack Easterby. Jack Easterby invited a lot of media types, including myself, to, what was the restaurant called? Talked to someone about this today. Prego. Is that Prego? a restaurant. And he basically wanted to have his cake and eat it too. Y'all have heard the story 100 times, but I immediately kind of called him out, roasted him, and called him out on the radio because he was that much of a scumbag. It just kind of takes you back. The reason I'm bringing this up is because, first of all, it's relevant because the Mavs are doing it. But second of all, it wasn't too long ago when Jack Easterby was running the Texans. So if we're going to argue about Kyle Williams, offensive line needs, running back needs, all that type of stuff, we've arrived in a good spot in a short time. I know I started this channel in 2022. Lovie Smith was the coach, and you were rooting for the Texans to lose. And it was a pretty exhausting team to cover, to be honest with you, on the radio and then on here. This is pretty fun. Good arguments, normal arguments to have, and they've arrived a long way. So we'll see. What is Easterby doing now? Probably counting money, if we're being honest. I think he's probably counting money. But up 45, the Easterby era lives on through the man named Nico. Speaking of 45, Woody's versus Bucky's. I know Bucky's is better. But if you're just trying to stop quickly when you're going up 45 or back 45, Woody's has a couple of advantages. Number one, they're on both sides of the highway. So if you want like the full cheesecakes, the kolaches, like Bucky's, if you're going towards Houston, you have to cross over. Woody's has literally both sides of the bridge out there. It's also a lot easier and a lot more convenient and right up there. And it kind of has like that less commercialized feel. So I don't know if y'all have ever tried, if y'all are Woody's stoppers, and I'm a big supporter of Woody's. Pause. But Bucky's, or not Bucky's, Woody's is not, but I'm a big fan of Bucky's, but Woody's is the spot to go. Figure it out. Bucky's is hard to mess with. Breakfast burrito, never had it. I bet it's delicious. Absolutely delicious. But check out Woody's next time you're out there. And I did pause it, so shut up, Brandon. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Busy day tomorrow. So let's just go through what's going down tomorrow. And be sure to like the video. Tomorrow, Caserio is going to speak at noon. We'll talk about that and more on S&L at 4 at the normal time. At 8 o'clock, the John Harris Super Stream on S&L. We'll cover literally every angle of the Texans draft. This will get you ready. This is your final cram session for the draft. 10:30, we'll talk about the Caserio stuff and maybe biggest takeaways from that live right here. And in between that, myself and Cody, we have to tape some TV because we'll be on your TV locally. We'll tell you where a little bit later, but we'll be on your TV on Easter. So if you're just sitting back with the family, check it out. We'll do a little S&L, and we'll definitely mention the draft party, which is going to be the 26th at Carbach in the Beer Garden, 11 a.m. So come by, say hi. Appreciate y'all for rolling through. I knew y'all were going to run with that Woody stuff, but you know what? It's just kind of what it is. Whether you're doing that or not, always remember when it comes to this Texan stuff, we're all in it together. Appreciate y'all for rolling through.
Can't stop, won't stop. Yeah, we top 2 and we not 2. Plugged in daily digital on YouTube. We got taste for days. Opinions to give, we got takeaways. If it's up, then it's up. We number 1. You don't need to try your luck. Locker room, yeah, we in the locker.